Brianna, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, one second.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance Education Series, How to Address Blockchain Usability Lessons for Building Great Apps and APIs. Today, we have presenters from Web3 Labs with us today. Krystian is a product designer at Web3 Labs and is passionate about investigating how evolving human needs are shaped by the influences of constant technological and societal development. And then we have Antony, who is the Chief Technical Officer at Web3 Labs. He is passionate about software craftsmanship and is particularly interested in associated supporting methodologies, namely XP, TDD, and Agile. So we welcome you both. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I will hand it off to our presenters to begin the presentation.
Awesome, thanks. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Antony, as we said, I'm CTO at Web3 Labs. Basically, Web3 Labs is primarily known for providing Java developers with tooling to connect to different blockchains, so things like Ethereum, Quorum, and R3 Corda. The other things that we provide is we also provide a developer insights platform called Epirus. And that's the thing we're going to talk about today, and the lessons that we learned in building Epirus and what usability challenges we had when trying to introduce developers to new concepts and practices. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Krystian, who's going to introduce the UX side of the talk, and we'll leave it up to him to introduce himself. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having us. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the theory part behind designing for decentralized applications. So firstly, we'll talk a little bit about blockchain as such a surprise, and then we'll talk about user-centered design and present Epirus, and then we'll wrap up with conclusions. So without further ado, let's start with that. So the blockchain space has been developing exponentially in the last few years. Most people have at least heard of blockchain, often pitched as the next big thing in technology with its promises of security and transparency. Visions of decentralized, distributed, and tokenized networks preoccupy mind of probably every business leader. And we can see even entire governments investing in blockchain initiatives, and that's great. That's such a huge step forward. However, until now, blockchain has been largely development driven, with good reasons though, because the foundations have been always focused on the protocol and code, but as technology matures and adoption grows, the audience changes. That's why to have that kind of great impact on the way businesses interact with each other, blockchain still has to overcome one thing, its usability problem. Sure, if you have a background in development, cryptography, and auto-distributed system, it's a very interesting technology to get into. But if you are removed from that low-level technology details and closer to actual business side, how do you represent this information in a more digestible format, helping drive wider adoption and be available to wider audience, businesses, and so on? So it's quite difficult to create great product that is going to change lives of everyday people across many industries if those people won't be able to use that product. If 80% of the people who would be the target consumers don't understand the technology, I believe that there's a need for a better way to inform them of the value proposition that blockchain offers. Or actually, maybe we don't have to explain it at all. At the end, the product is not the blockchain, just like the product is not the cloud, a database, or a bunch of other microservices. if we can say so. Product to be successful should be focused on delivering real value to people and providing solutions for their needs. So like solutions for banking, I don't know, chat, supply chain, health services, and so on. The blockchain just happens to be underlying technology chosen to help implement that new product. And product's value to the customers is not the blockchain, as I mentioned, but rather the pain point it solves or the pleasure it brings to some aspects. Frankly, we believe that it's not important for a farmer or warehouse worker to know that their transactions are being posted to a blockchain at all. For a supply chain app built on a centralized server, I don't think we would explain any nuances of the server redundancy or anything related to technology side, how that app was built in the farmer flow or any other part during the process interacting with the supply chain. So having this in mind, we reckon that user experience design will ultimately have a greater impact on the widespread adoption of blockchain than technology itself. And the reason behind of that is, you see, adoption is tricky. It involves humans, and humans are actually very fussy creatures. Their needs and wants are constantly changing. They don't really like to spend too much time on complicated things, and winning their trust is not easy. Early adopters of cryptocurrencies, developers, and other blockchain enthusiasts probably are more forgiving. They will be fine with just seeing a command line or crude user interface with a lot of hashes and necessary to take loads of steps to do any action. But if blockchain is to gain widespread adoption, the late-coming users will demand that applications, decentralized applications, meet a high standard of quality and design and usability similar to what they're used to now. So using any, I don't know, like WhatsApp, social media, any normal centralized app that are created these days. So if blockchain won't meet those expectations, we can certainly say that it will be very difficult to count on mass adoption. And that's why we've got design. And human-centered design is really a way to bridge between this great cutting-edge technology and applications of tomorrow. However, usually people mistakenly associate design with just making stuff pretty. Probably can imagine that kind of picture when they hear design or something similar. However, design is not about pushing pixels. It's more as the problem-solving process of creating products that provide meaningful and personally relevant experiences to the user. It means listening to the people using your product and crafting your product in response to their needs. Basically, it's a process that helps to find out what users really want, and it helps make better, more rational decisions rather than ones based just on assumptions. And design also covers the entire process of acquiring, interacting with the product, including aspects of branding, visual design, function. It's also responsible for communicating the value of the product to the potential customer. So actually, it covers loads of different parts related to the product and the kind of business side. And in this situation, blockchain as a new technology with low level of understanding by the public is standing actually in front of even a bigger challenge. Companies that want to create decentralized applications or any products must realize that they're still competing with the tech companies that already exist. And what is more difficult is that users don't really care about the technology. They are interested in how product/technology makes their life easier, better, and more pleasant. And in this situation, we can take, for example, as an example, Facebook. So many people probably are not very pleased in a way how Facebook operates, but most likely those people still use Facebook as it allows them to conveniently connect with friends, family, or run business. These days, loads of businesses are based on Facebook, Twitter, and generally kind of focusing those fairly closed ecosystems. And working application, as hard as it might be to engineer, is the bare minimum that user expects. All other aspects of user's experience will make them excited about the product, make them interact with it, pay for it, and at the end of the day, be what drives the adoption. And don't take me wrong, I'm not saying that design is going to magically solve all the problems. It won't. What I try to say is it takes collaboration. The solution isn't 100% driven just by design or engineering. We believe that best products exist because design, engineering, and business come and work together. And that's kind of the first part of our thoughts regarding the subject. Now we'll show you the live demo of Epirus based on coffee supply chain, which we set up, case study, along with explaining our thought process behind certain design solution, design technological and decisions. However, before we go there, we're wondering if there are any questions at this point. We would love to hear some.
All good. Thanks, Krystian. All right then. Can we start by taking a quick look at that Solidity contract that we've written?
Just give me 1 second. I will try to set it up very quickly.
Lovely. You just make that full screen. So what we've got here is a very simple Solidity contract that just has 3 functions on it. So we've got a set inspector, set harvester, and set exporter. And we've also got 3 events being emitted when each function's called. So the idea here is we're just modeling something very simple whereby a farmer can basically grow some coffee crops and then have it inspected, harvest it, and then export it using different accounts. So we'll have a different account representing the different parties involved in the system, and we'll show how that sort of hangs together slightly differently than what you'd expect from a normal blockchain explorer. So if we go right ahead and have a look at the dashboard, can you just switch the transaction count from today to the last 30 days, Krystian? So what we've tried to do is basically make the first screen that you see when you come to this Explorer as providing the information that you really want to see the most. So most blockchain explorers will take you straight to blocks. And the reality is that unless you're incredibly technically minded, you don't really care about blocks. What you actually care about is the contracts you're interested in and the transactions that have happened on those contracts. So let's go dive straight in and have a look at transactions. And again, what we've tried to do with the transactions is provide something with a bit more of a rich UI. So whilst all this information is available in other explorers and things, it's important to decode it and present it in a way that is more meaningful. So if we just hover over one of the method function calls, you can see that we've decoded the parameters for the function, and we can see the values that have been passed into that function. We just drill into one of those, if we drill into that transaction. So again, we're just providing more information about that particular transaction. Again, that's not to say that this information isn't available already. It's just how you present it back to the user. So I think this is, I hope you all agree that this is certainly more user-friendly than what a normal sort of blockchain explorer would be. Okay, let's go and have a look at some of the contracts. And if we just look at Hill Farm batch. So the idea here, you notice that we've actually given the contract a tag or label. And again, it's nothing amazingly revolutionary. It's just super simple, just allowing a user to be able to tag something with a different name. I mean, if you look at the hash, I mean that's basically meaningless to most people. So if you want to actually see and find your the information, you need to be able to use something a bit more user friendly. So the other thing we've done with that is we've tied this into search. So if you want to search for Hill Farm, we should see be able to actually search for that. And you can see that we've got the Hill Farm account and the Hill Farm batch. So if we just take a look at the Hill Farm account, you can see that the Hill Farm account all they've done is created the contract, and they've called the function set harvesting on the particular batch. And again, if you look at the transactions, it becomes a bit more usable or visible as to what's being done when and by whom. So if we drill back into the Hill Farm batch, again you can see that we've got different accounts making function calls against this smart contract. So the first one we've got is Kai inspections, which is basically what we've modeled as our inspector. And the idea is that they've come in and inspected the crop, and then after the crop's been inspected, we harvest it. So obviously it's the farmer that harvests it, but the farmer doesn't export it. It's you obviously pass it on to an exporter, and the idea here is that we have this particular exporter that's exporting the product. Let's just see. So yeah, I think that's basically it from our point of view. I think we'll start to see as products get developed further. I think what we'll see is a hybrid between sort of this middle ground where we'll see dashboards and blockchain, generic dashboards and blockchain explorers being used by operations teams and managers to see what's going on in their particular networks. I don't think it will fully replace bespoke applications, so I can't imagine a farmer being interested in seeing this information. I kind of think of this as being akin to monitoring a database or a website for errors, that kind of thing, or transaction flows. And I think as we move forward, we'll start to enrich this data even more so that people can see more insights. And yeah, that's it from the demo. We'll pause now to see if anybody's got any questions about that or anything we've talked about today, and otherwise that'll be it.
All right. If folks have questions, feel free to chat them into either the chat box or the question box, or and I will ask them. We have one question coming in on whether or not this is only at Web3 Lab.
Could you expand a bit more? So is Epirus only available for Web3? So Epirus is a product we sell as a SaaS offering, if that's the question. So it's available on Azure Marketplace and AWS Marketplace to run against your own networks. the target audience is consortiums running their own private networks.
Great. And then it looks like another part of that was, is it available for the blockchain protocol usage?
So at the moment we support Ethereum, Quorum, and Pantheon, Besu, sorry, as it is rebranded. So I guess, yeah, I think that answers the question. Let me know if it doesn't.
Thank you.
This is Ken from. Do you guys have any advice for API development, creation of APIs? How do you handle the commit times? You know, gas fee. How do you deal with gas fees? You know, are there issues that you're dealing with representation of accounts? You know, I'd like to go a little bit further into some of the challenges that you have faced in working with blockchain that may be different than you know, Web 2.
Sure. I think the main difference for us is what we did with Epirus is basically a fairly standard ETL routine whereby we're extracting everything out of your node and basically transforming it and loading it into a website. We didn't really focus much on how people can interact with Web3 in terms of creating transactions or performing transactions. The difficult part, I suppose, is around the sort of asynchronicity of it and trying to understand how you know, it's probabilistic, right? So you're not you know, once your transaction's gone through, it sort of, you know, shows up eventually. You hope, you think, and if it doesn't, obviously you need to rerun that transaction. That's considerably different to a sort of standard centralized database where you know that the thing you've sent has got there, and it's definitely got there, right? I'm not sure if that answers your question, I can, but happy to talk a bit more about it.
Great, thank you. We have another question that has come in. How does a third-party dashboard guarantee feudality of the data in blocks?
You can't. So you have to rely on, it's basically a copy of your own node. So it's down to your node to provide that service for you. So when we talk about a node, what we're talking about is your either eea-eth or parity or Besu instance that's connected to the network, and it's that connection that provides that those assurances for you. We're not, we're just presenting data that is available in that node. So there's no guarantees that it's correct. I mean, we obviously check the data against what's in the node, but that's going to be a constant challenge because it's basically a reflection of the data that is available on the blockchain.
Thank you. We have another question that's come in. Do you have any GitHub repository?
We do. Let me grab a link, and if I can, I'll post it in the chat. But basically, if you search for GitHub blk-io, unfortunately, we're struggling to get the Web3 Labs GitHub page. Let me see if I can post this in the chat for you.
Yeah.
Actually, Krystian, can you post that in the chat?
Sorry.
Great. We have another question that's come up. Do you address transactions in queue as well as failed transactions? And do you have alerts?
We don't. So at the moment, we're considering something around alerts is something we're looking at so that you can subscribe to things happening on, let's say, your contract, that kind of thing. It's not something we have at the moment, though. In terms of failed transactions and processing transactions, again, it's kind of hard because you're just reflecting your node's view of the world. Something we're considering, but to be honest, most of the focus has been around things that have happened rather than things that are happening. That's basically been our primary focus for this at the moment.
Great. And I believe the URL for this was shared in the chat box.
It should be. If the other place you can go to is web3labs.com/Epirus, and that should give you everything that you need. So it should.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if we have no other questions, we will. This meeting has been recorded and it will be posted to the collaboration site on the YouTube channel, so you can feel free to reference and share with your colleagues. And we thank you so much for joining.
Smashing, thanks. Hope people found it useful.
Thank you.